I'd like to welcome everybody to the Chamber Chat, Current Issues Unpacked. My name is Raul Sada. I'm the President and CEO for the Northwest Valley Chamber of Commerce. Today's episode should be very interesting. We have a multi-billion dollar BNSF logistics park planned. For those of you who are not familiar with it, the BNSF Railway is one of the largest rail networks in the United States. And they recently purchased about 4,300 acres near Waddell and Surprise, which is near Northwest Phoenix, Arizona. And from my understanding, it's going to be about 18 million square feet of warehouse space, over 1,000 acres of dedicated rail space. And it's going to be a $1 billion investment. And some of the preliminary I heard about it, but 10,000 construction jobs and millions of dollars of annual tax revenue. But we'll let Jim and his crew go into a little more detail on that. Jim, Rounds Consulting is our featured speaker today, and they are Arizona's premier economic and public policy consulting firm. If his name or his face looks familiar, it's because you've probably seen him. He makes regular appearances on Arizona PBS, KTAR radio, uh, all sorts of business publications, etc. The only caveat that I have here is that the Northwest Valley Chamber of Commerce has not taken an official position on the project. However, we do feel it's absolutely critical to have some informed dialogue on it, and that's basically why we created the Chamber Chat series, so that we can gain valuable insights directly from experts to really empower the community with knowledge and insights. So let's go ahead and dive into this. Jim, why don't you tell us who you are and tell us a little bit about your firm, why your perspective matters on this, just for the audience members that might not be real familiar with what you do and your role.
Sure. Jim Rounds. I'm an economist and policy advisor. We do advising from everybody from the governor to local levels of government. We do private sector advising for economic development entities, pretty much all over the place. Any major public policy item that you've seen pass, where there's a tax credit or a tax cut or regulatory reform, whatever it might be, we probably worked on in some way. And about 10 years ago, I started the business with my colleague Luis, who's also on the screen. And we do a lot of advanced economic modeling. We're usually brought in where the project is fairly large and it's a little bit more difficult to pick up all the nuances of how it might impact the economy. And that's why we were brought in for this particular project. But we work on a lot of transportation related projects, a lot of infrastructure, general infrastructure investment. So it's not our first rodeo at looking at something like this, but we were really impressed with the economic statistics that came out of this study.
Hmm, cool. Louis, anything you want to say there, or?
Yeah, no, so I'm Luis Cordova, I'm Vice President of Rounds Consulting Group. So I was the lead analyst analyzing the significant impact of the BNSF railway project.
Well, thank you both for being with us today. The first question I have is, why do you think they even picked the area, and what's the importance of having this kind of a project located in the Northwest Valley? And the other part two of that, Jim, is have you worked on similar projects? And just give us a high level overview of that as well.
Yeah, well, with transportation projects, you don't just randomly put things in the ground. You don't just say, I'm going to build a freeway and we're just going to build it in the middle of nowhere. It has to do with the economy. It has to do with how goods flow back and forth. And so for a rail project, obviously anything major like this would occur where there's a rail line, where the economics make sense for a particular region, where it can also maybe have impacts even beyond the particular region, which is the case with this. When we've looked at these types of projects, you want to look at what the economic benefits are when there's construction, because construction workers get paid a wage, they spend money, the businesses hire inputs, and so you end up generating extra revenue for the local community that way. But then there's ongoing operations, and it's going to be significant. This thing's going to be large, but it's going to be very productive. It's going to have higher wages, and it's going to have a pretty significant positive economic impact in that particular region. But when we've looked at major highway expansions, we've looked at extensions of taxes to fund roadways throughout an entire county. We've even looked at issues related to statewide transportation, like I-17 and the potential for I-11 down the road. So uh, when you look at these, you got to think about the business itself, what kind of activity is going to occur. But in the back of your mind, you also have to be thinking, is this going to beget some additional extra business activity? And so while the numbers that we produce are very significant, and Luis will go over a lot of what he calculated, we are picking up the direct, indirect, and induced benefits. And it sounds technical, but it's really what's the activity occurring there? Business then spends money in a community, and then the workers spend money in a community. So that's what those three things are. But it doesn't even pick up, is this going to maybe cause some additional activity down the road, maybe in another county? So the benefit to the state is going to be far greater than what we're even showing. And we have some pretty impressive numbers on this project. So this is very important. This is something that could impact everybody. It's not just a sub-regional project. This is truly a statewide benefit type of a project.
Wow. So I think you said something about job. Could you explore a little bit about the job potential, maybe during the construction, and then maybe some of the long-term impacts and what that might mean for the Northwest Valley? Or
Yeah, sure. So during construction, we estimate the project would generate more than 26,000 jobs. And that includes construction trade jobs, engineering jobs, and a lot of those supporting industries. And then once the project is operational, the hub could support over 50,000 jobs annually. And that's not just in the logistics and warehousing jobs, but also in, a lot of the supplier, retail service, and small businesses tied to the hub. Within that $50,000 job estimate, we did look at how many on-site jobs could be supported by that 20,000 square feet of logistics center, and that was over 20,000 jobs just on-site.
hmm. So when you say, that's an impressive number, and when you mention all these jobs, I'm thinking of maybe more homes, uh, more residential activity, and then that is going to directly or indirectly impact small businesses and local entrepreneurs. Any comments on that, on kind of like the long-term benefits in terms of ripple effects?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's spot on. The numbers that Luis quoted are impressive, but the workers are going to need housing. When you have this kind of an investment in an area like this that's a little bit more rural, you end up lifting incomes. You're bringing in higher wage jobs than what currently exists. So you see higher household incomes, which means more tax collections for the local government entities, which means an ability to do both, keep taxes low and competitive, and also provide more services for area residents. So the fact that you're going to see some growth if this goes through, it's going to not just benefit the workers, it's going to benefit everybody in the particular area, because you're going to see that spinoff. Individuals that maybe have to drive a long ways to find some amenities that they like, find that restaurant that they want to go to. All of a sudden, they're going to stop. They're going to start popping up here and there. You're going to see all sorts of neat things happen. I would love to be in a situation where I'm placed in a position where I'm driving on a new road to my higher wage job, and it's taken me less time than normal, and I have more time to spend with my family. So lots of benefits related to the math, but then there's just lots of benefits related to quality of life as well.
Hmm. So in that same vein, what do you think the impact would be on the property values? I mean, we're taking some vacant uh, desert land, very low population density, and now all of a sudden it's going to get developed. What are your thoughts on that?
We've looked at this before. We've looked at this many times. There's always an increase in the value of the asset. So you're going to see individuals have more equity in their homes. Their home values are going to go up. They're going to net benefit from being in a community that has the amenities. When people want to move into a neighborhood, they don't just look at the house itself. They look at the neighborhood, then they look at the neighborhood outside the neighborhood. They look at how far it's going to take to go to a grocery store. They look at how long it's going to take to get to a gas station. Are there some parks included in an area? So all these things are going to add value. So I know that there's been arguments pro and con in terms of how projects like this might impact property values, but every time that we've looked at it, dozens of times, property values have always been lifted, especially with these types of mega projects are going to bring in very high quality jobs.
Luis, any comments on that or?
Yeah, so like Jim was saying, so a project of this scale, it's a magnet for economic activity. So a lot of those like suppliers, say like truck maintenance companies will want to locate nearby. So all this additional demand really, increases the value of that property surrounding the site.
Yeah. So, another thing that pops to mind here is that what I hear you saying, Jim, is that there's going to be some infrastructure investments in order to accommodate better roads, etc. And so, just for the benefit of the audience, who pays for all of this stuff? If the road has to be widened and there has to be improvements, yeah, who bears the cost?
Well, it varies depending on what you're putting in. And so if it's project specific, often a developer would be putting in the roads and some of the infrastructure. When you start getting into regional roads or arterials that are considered public roads, then that's part of what a community would put in. But the key here is this is a positive ROI project. And so a lot of policymakers and members of the public always say we want government to be run more like a business. Well, a business would spend $1 if it's going to make $3 in return. This is something where even if the government puts in some of this infrastructure, it's going to be collecting so much more in tax revenue. It's going to be a positive ROI for the government, which is going to allow it to further invest in additional infrastructure or, again, keep taxes low. And we've seen some communities do this. When you've seen strong growth and you've had a well-balanced city council or board of supervisors, they always find a way of making it where the business benefits and the public benefits at the same time.
But
Comments?
yeah, just to add to that, so during construction alone, the estimated tax revenues is about $190 million in state and local tax collections. And then once it's operational, it's about 250 million in state and local taxes. So that would offset some of those initial infrastructure costs.
So we talk about local taxes. I immediately think of parks and recreation, police, fire support, and all sorts of other quality of life
But
issues.
public safety is a big one. I'm glad you brought that up. That's included, yes.
So, so basically, what I heard you say is this return on investment (ROI) is kind of like the a good way to look at it, right? In terms of its economic viability to the community. Now I want you to both of you guys to put your economist hat on. In watching some of the media coverage out there recently regarding the project, there's been a lot of concern about just not wanting a big company out there, traffic, noise, impact on the environment, water. And as an economist, I'd like for you to take your look at that. I mean, how does an economist consider that or weigh that or what goes in through your mind?
Well, infrastructure adjusts based on need. You're going to see demand for, like I said, more restaurants, grocery stores, all those types of things. Those will come in. You're going to see increases in household income, more tax revenues, more flexibility for the government to be competitive, and then there could be additional businesses coming in too. Now, there's going to be some individuals that would rather live in a far more rural area, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the negative comments related to this is going to cause some form of economic harm, like negatively impact property values and things like that. That's just not the case. But it's hard to, when we talk about these big numbers, when we're talking about billions of dollars, it's hard to put some context behind that because that's not something that we deal with every week. We don't go pick up our paycheck and it says $1 billion on it. So that these are just such large numbers, it's hard for people to comprehend. But the overall economic impact on this thing is massive. What was the number, Louise?
It's over 7 billion a year.
7 billion a year. And for some context, a Super Bowl generates 1 billion in economic activity a year.
Wow.
Seven. This is 7 Super Bowls every year. This is a
Wow.
big project with high ROI, high income. Most communities would be salivating over the potential for projects like this, and the state as a whole is going to significantly benefit from this project as well. So, as an economist, a policy advisor, uh, looking at Maricopa County as a whole and other counties as well, this is going to spur additional economic activity and having some investment at a time when the economy might be slowing a bit. I'd love to see this thing be moving forward so we can take advantage of it during our next economic expansion when we really rocket out of the next downturn, unlike a lot of other states, and everybody ends up benefiting.
Hmm. Well, I also had the privilege of speaking to a resident in Surprise, and uh, her biggest concern, I think, is what she shared with me was, the roads are so small out there. The last thing we need is more traffic and more trucks on these tiny little roads. I mean, how would you help her deal with those concerns or issues?
Well, when you have weaker economic activity, it's difficult to fund things like major road projects. And you end up having, it's not just smaller roads, but you have more potholes in the roads and they're not as safe. You don't have as much public safety. If you get in an accident, you might have to wait a little bit longer to get some help. And so as the economy grows, especially when it grows disproportionately uh, fast when a project like this presents itself, which is a real unicorn type of a project, you end up with roads that are more than adequate to accommodate the new traffic, but they're also new and they're safer. And you have traffic lights where you used to have dangerous stop sign intersections. Everybody is going to benefit from this. In the end, even though it doesn't seem intuitive, people are going to be able to get around the region much more quickly with the extra investment than they otherwise would, and it'll be a safer environment for them and their families as well.
Hmm. So, kind of like what I hear you saying then is that that any short-lived problems will be more than offset by the long-term economic dollar. So having small, actually, so the development when it is started would basically help to increase the capacity of the roads and the infrastructure in the area.
Correct, and that goes hand in hand. It's not as if you build this economic opportunity and then you wait 7 or 8 years and then you build some roads. All of these things are developed at the same time because the business has to be efficient and the community has to be efficient. So this could be a real good partnership and maybe even the beginning of something even bigger for that particular region. It doesn't just have to be this project. We think that there's going to be additional opportunities coming in, and this will be a great place for someone to live and raise a family and have kids that can find a job nearby and, work within live and work within the same neighborhoods. Right now, you just don't have that.
Hmm. So, I remember having a conversation with you years ago, and you mentioned or pointed out to my attention that the strength of the Northwest Valley Chamber area was the fact that we were regional and all the surrounding communities around us collectively. Uh, how do you see the collective impact being? I mean, we talked a lot about businesses coming into that particular area, but could you maybe spend a few minutes talking about a broader impact? Like, I think you touched on it slightly, but the impact for Maricopa County or the state or.
Well, we're seeing TSMC up there. We're seeing Amcor. And the great thing about this is that it's connecting, a little bit further north. So you have this broader region that's going to be growing at a similar time. And so these communities will be able to get together and have common public policy and economic development goals. They'll be able to coordinate on one particular community might have some land where the another base sector business might locate, and the other one might have a lot of the high wage supplier businesses go in. And so you don't want to get left behind your neighbors. You also don't want to get too far ahead your neighbors. You want to be working with your neighbors. And this is an opportunity for, the areas a little bit north of, Peoria and that part of Phoenix to be participating in this economic activity. And I think it's just a real exciting opportunity for the area. And, we talk about Maricopa County and we talk about the state of Arizona, but just think about the logistics of the goods that could be going through an area. Well, when you have transportation access for goods, you also have to have people that are making goods and doing R&D related to those goods. And so it gives job opportunities for people at all different levels of academic achievement and at higher wages than they otherwise would have. And so this project goes in along with some of the other complementary ones that we're seeing in the Northwest Valley. The Northwest Valley is very different than it was a few years ago, and it's going to be very different in another, 5 to 10 years, but it's for the positive. It's going to be a fantastic place to locate, and it's not going to be seen as, oh, I went a little bit too far beyond the city center. It's going to be, I'm right in the middle of a really neat city center. This might be a place I want to buy a home.
Interesting. What do you think about the political aspects? I mean, if you had to deliver a message to the elected officials at the state or even local levels that might be needing to address some of the concerns of the residents, if you had to send a message out to them and as well as the residents for that matter, how would you kind of summarize your overall assessment?
I'll start, then let Luis talk. In this case, it's if I was a policymaker, I would love to be a supporter of this because I would like to say I worked on getting a large number of jobs into our area that really changed the dynamic of our local subregion, of our neighborhoods. It's benefiting everybody. It's allowing me to keep taxes low while providing good services, public safety, additional roadways. It's allowing us to market the region. I'd be very proud of that. That would be my platform that I would run on during the next election.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts, Louise?
Yeah, and so in terms of the community benefits, it does mean, a lot more good jobs close to home, stronger local businesses. Another benefit is, with a logistics project like this, you do reduce the cost of moving goods and services. So that also attracts additional businesses to the area. Just the better connectivity, just improves the efficiencies. So it's really a way to, have good, responsible community growth.
Hmm. Cool.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Well, anything else to wrap up, guys? I know you guys are very busy and
No, we were excited to work on this. The numbers were much larger than we thought they were going to be, and we still feel like they're understated because we feel like there's going to be the additional activity that occurs because of the thing that Luis just brought up, these extra efficiencies that are being created. So this is a win for the entire state, and I really hope this comes to fruition because I think it's important for the state, but this would be such a valuable asset to add to the Northwest Valley, where decades ago it was kind of the forgotten area. Now it is the place that people want to be. And this really lends itself to that. So my fingers are crossed that the public will ultimately see these benefits and support it. It's not always the case, but the economics and the kind of the social end of it uh, would be on the plus side, would be on the positive side.
awesome. Luis, parting comments, thoughts?
Yeah, just to add to that, so I mean, this kind of long-term investment really puts Arizona on the map in terms of logistics, and lowers business costs for businesses and families. So it really helps us compete nationally.
Okay, guys. Well, on behalf of the Northwest Valley Chamber of Commerce, it's the first time both you guys have been on Chamber Chat. So a special thank you guys for taking your time from your busy Friday here to join us. And again, thank you very much. And hopefully we'll get you on another episode when there's another issue that needs to be unpacked.
And it's always good to see you. Call anytime.
Awesome.
Thank you.